Welcome to my channel. You know, people often ask me, how did you practice English when you were just starting? And I always smile, because my method was strange, simple, and powerful at the same time. I didn't have expensive books. I didn't have a personal teacher. I didn't even live in an English-speaking country. Yet somehow, every single day, my English became a little better, a little faster, and a little more natural. And the truth is, you can do it too. See, when I started, I couldn't even make a simple sentence without mistakes. I used to pause a lot. My mind was empty, and I felt nervous every time I tried to speak. But slowly, I found my own way, a way that didn't cost money, didn't need a partner, and didn't need a classroom. Just me, my phone, and a few simple daily habits. Today, I'm going to take you back step by step. I will show you exactly how I practiced from the very beginning, from the days I was scared to speak, to the moment I could talk freely without thinking. And I promise you, if you stay till the end, you'll have the exact roadmap to make English your second nature, just like I did. Chapter 1. The First Realization. When I first started learning English, I thought I was doing great. I could read books in English. I could watch videos with subtitles. I could understand most of what people were saying in movies. And honestly, I thought, yes, I know English now. I can speak easily. But the real shock came the first time I actually tried to speak. I remember it so clearly. I was standing with a friend, and he asked me a simple question in English. My brain understood the question immediately, but my mouth refused to move. I froze. I just stood there, smiling like I understood everything, which I did, but I couldn't get a single word out. That was the first moment I realized that knowing English is not the same as speaking English. After that, I started paying attention to myself more. Whenever I tried to talk in English, my brain would first think in my own language, then try to translate it, then try to speak it. But by the time the words reached my mouth, I had already lost confidence. Sometimes the sentence came out wrong. Sometimes it came out half in English, half in my own language. Like once, I wanted to say, I will meet you tomorrow, but it came out as, I will meet you, Cal. And Kal is from my native language. My friend looked at me, laughed, and I laughed too, but deep inside, I felt a little embarrassed. I still remember another funny but awkward moment. I was at a small shop, and the shopkeeper spoke to me in English. I wanted to ask, do you have cold water? But instead, I said, you have water cold? He smiled politely and gave me the water, but I could see he understood I was not comfortable in English. It was a simple sentence, but in that moment, it felt like climbing a mountain. That's when I started noticing a big problem. It was not that I didn't know the words. It was not that I didn't know grammar. I knew the words. I had learned grammar rules in school. But still, when it came time to speak, something blocked me. And then I understood. The problem was my mouth-mind connection. My brain and my mouth were not working together in English. My brain knew the sentence, but my mouth had no practice saying it out loud. I started thinking about it like this. Imagine you know all the steps of riding a bicycle, but you have never actually sat on one. The first time you try, you will fall. Not because you don't know the theory, but because your body is not used to doing it. Speaking English is the same. Your mouth needs practice, just like your hands and legs need practice for cycling. After this realization, I stopped blaming myself for not knowing English. I knew English. I just hadn't used it enough with my mouth. And that gave me some hope. I thought, if the problem is practice, then I can fix it. But still, there was one more problem. Where would I practice? I didn't have English-speaking friends. My family didn't speak English at home. I didn't have the confidence to talk to strangers in English. And I didn't want to join a class because I was scared people would laugh at me if I made mistakes. For some days, I didn't do anything. I just kept thinking about it. But then something happened. I saw a small idea in a video, and that idea completely changed how I practiced English forever. It was so simple that I almost didn't believe it would work. But when I tried it, it felt like magic. My mouth started moving faster. My brain and my tongue started working together. And slowly, the fear of speaking started disappearing. I'm going to share that exact daily habit with you in the next chapter. Trust me, it doesn't need a partner, it doesn't need a classroom, and it doesn't need money. All it needs is you and a little bit of time every day. Once you hear it, you'll realize you can start practicing English right after this video ends. And that's exactly what I did. Chapter 2. Talking to myself. So here's the big secret I discovered. I started talking to myself in English. Yes, it sounds a little strange, but it worked better than anything else I had tried. At first, I thought, how will this help me? I'm just speaking to myself. There's no one to listen, no one to correct me. But then I realized that was the best part. Because there was no one to judge me, no one to laugh at me, and no one to stop me. I could make as many mistakes as I wanted, and I could keep going without feeling shy. I began with small sentences. If I was at home, I would say things like, I am making tea, or I will clean my room now, or this food smells good. At first, it felt a little funny, because my mouth was not used to speaking in English so much. But the more I spoke, the easier it became. I was training my brain and my tongue to work together. Soon, I started doing it everywhere. If I was walking on the street, I would look at things around me and describe them in English. That car is red. The road is busy today. The weather is hot. Sometimes I would tell myself small stories. I am going to the shop. I will buy some water. After that, I will walk home. It sounds simple, but this was powerful practice because I was thinking and speaking at the same time in English. Now, there was one little problem. When you talk to yourself outside, people look at you. And if they see you talking to yourself, they might think you are a little crazy. That happened to me in the beginning. I remember once I was walking near the market, speaking to myself in English, and a man looked at me with a confused face. I quickly stopped talking and pretended I was humming a song. I laughed about it later, but in that moment, I felt a little embarrassed. That's when I found my perfect solution: fake earphones. I didn't even have real earphones at that time, but I took an old pair, put them in my ears, and kept the wire in my pocket. Now, whenever I spoke to myself in English, people thought I was talking to someone on a call. Suddenly, no one stared at me strangely. In fact, some people even smiled, thinking I was a busy person having an important conversation. One time, I was walking and practicing, saying things like, "Yes, I agree with your idea, and that is a good plan," pretending I was in a business meeting. A stranger passed me and said, "Wow, your English is very good." I just smiled and said, "Thank you." But inside, I was laughing because I wasn't talking to anyone at all. I was just practicing. The best part about speaking to myself was that I could practice anytime, anywhere. I didn't have to wait for a friend. I didn't have to join a class. And I didn't have to feel shy in front of others. I was building my speaking muscles in private, so that later, when I did speak with real people, I would feel ready. This habit became my turning point. Before this, I was scared to speak English because I thought I would make mistakes and people would laugh. But after weeks of talking to myself, I started feeling more comfortable. My mouth was moving faster, my sentences were coming out more naturally, and my brain didn't have to translate every word anymore. I was slowly starting to think in English. If you think about it, it's like learning to swim. You don't just jump into the deep water in front of everyone. First, you practice alone in a small pool where no one is watching. You get used to moving, you get used to the water, and then you can swim in the big pool confidently. Talking to myself was my small pool. It gave me the safe space I needed to grow. And the truth is, anyone can do this. You don't need money. You don't need special tools. All you need is your voice, your thoughts, and a few minutes every day. Just start speaking out loud, even if it's about what you are doing right now. Over time, you'll be surprised how fast your confidence grows. In the next chapter, I'm going to tell you how I took this habit even further by changing not only how I spoke, but also how I thought. That step made my English faster, more natural, and more automatic than ever before. Chapter 3: Thinking in English. When I first started speaking English, I had one big problem that I didn't even notice at the beginning. I was translating every sentence in my head from my native language into English before speaking. It might sound okay, but here's the truth. This is the number one reason why we speak slowly, fumble, and sometimes forget what we wanted to say. Think about it. When you speak your own language, you don't translate anything. The words just come. But when I spoke English in the beginning, my brain would first make the sentence in my language, then try to find the English words for it, and then try to arrange those words in the right order. By the time my mouth was ready, the conversation had already moved on. It felt like I was always one step late. I realized this was like trying to run with a heavy bag on my back. Possible, but slow and tiring. So I decided I needed to remove that translation step completely. That's when I told myself, from now on, I will try to think directly in English. At first, it was hard. My brain didn't want to do it. I would start a thought in English, but without realizing, I would switch back to my native language in my head. But I didn't give up. I made a very simple rule for myself. Whenever I saw something, I would name it in English in my head. If I saw a chair, I would think chair. If I saw a boy running, I would think the boy is running. If I saw the sky, I would think the sky is blue. It sounds too simple, right? But the magic is, this was training my brain to connect objects, actions, and feelings directly to English words without going through my native language. Then I made it more fun. I started playing a little game with myself. I called it the 5-minute Describe Everything game. The rules were simple. For 5 minutes, I had to keep talking in English without stopping, describing everything I saw around me. If I was in my room, I would say, "This is my table. There is a book on my table. The book is open. My phone is next to the book. I can hear some noise outside. The window is open. The curtain is moving. The first time I tried, I could barely go for 1 minute before I stopped, searching for words. But after a few days, I could go for the full 5 minutes without freezing. This game trained my mouth and brain to stay in English mode the whole time. Sometimes I would do this game in my head if I was outside and didn't want to speak out loud. For example, on the bus I would think, that man is reading a newspaper. A child is eating ice cream. The driver is talking on the phone. Even when I was not speaking, I was practicing my thinking speed in English. The beautiful thing about this habit is that it doesn't take extra time from your day. You can do it while walking, cleaning, cooking, or waiting in line. And because you're doing it every day, your brain slowly gets used to thinking in English without even realizing it. After a few weeks of this, I noticed a big change. When I wanted to say something, the English words came to me directly. I didn't have to translate in my head first. My sentences became faster, my speaking became smoother, and my confidence went up. And here's something important. You don't need perfect grammar for this exercise. The goal is not to speak like a textbook. The goal is to keep your brain in English mode as much as possible. The more you stay in that mode, the faster you improve. For me, this was another turning point. The first turning point was talking to myself out loud. The second was thinking in English all day, even when I wasn't speaking. When you combine these two, you start living in English, not just learning it. In the next chapter, I'm going to share the step that took my speaking to an even higher level, training my ears. Because the truth is, the way you listen to English changes the way you speak it. Once I started improving my listening skills, my speaking speed and pronunciation improved without me even trying. And I'll tell you exactly how I did it. Chapter 4, Feeding My Brain English All Day. When I look back, one of the biggest leaps in my speaking ability didn't happen while I was actually speaking. It happened while I was listening. At some point, I realized that my brain needed English all the time, not just during my study hours. Before, I was doing what most learners do, opening a textbook for 1 hour, watching a random English video once in a while, and then switching back to my native language for the rest of the day. It was like trying to grow a plant, but only giving it sunlight for a few minutes, and keeping it in the dark the rest of the time. No wonder my English wasn't blooming. So I made a decision. If my brain was going to get better at English, it needed to be surrounded by it every single day. The first thing I did was change my phone's language to English. That small switch had a big effect. Suddenly, every time I unlocked my phone, I was reading English words without even thinking about it. My settings, my messages, my app names, all in English. It felt strange at first, and yes, I did tap the wrong button a few times because I didn't recognize the word, but that was part of the learning. Next, I attacked my YouTube feed. I started subscribing only to English channels. Not just educational ones. I followed travel vloggers, tech reviewers, comedians, and even random people who posted about their daily lives. My logic was simple. If I was going to spend time watching videos anyway, why not do it in English? And here's where it got interesting. I discovered that I didn't have to watch English learning content to improve my English. I could watch anything, as long as it was in English. One of my funniest discoveries was how much cooking videos helped me. I wasn't even interested in cooking before, but watching recipes in English became a secret listening practice. The host would say things like, "Chop the onions finely," or simmer for 10 minutes. And without realizing it, I was learning new vocabulary and understanding natural speech. I even remember one time when I was watching a baking video, and the baker said, "Let's whisk it until it's fluffy." I didn't know the word whisk before, but from the video, I could guess it meant mixing quickly. That's when I realized English was now slipping into my brain without me forcing it. But I didn't just listen. I copied. This is what people call shadowing. Whenever I watched a video, I would repeat what the speaker said immediately and in the same tone. If they spoke fast, I tried to keep up. If they spoke slowly, I copied the rhythm. In the beginning, I sounded like a bad echo, always a second late, missing words, sometimes mixing in my own. But after a few weeks, I started matching the timing better. My mouth was learning how to move in English, and my pronunciation started to feel more natural. I even caught myself using the same expressions I heard online. If a YouTuber said, "That's insane," or "Let's dive in," I would start saying it too, without planning. This daily input changed everything. I began to notice that my speaking speed improved because my ears were training my mouth. The more I listened, the easier it became to produce sentences without stopping to think. I started to feel the rhythm of English, the way some words are stressed and others are softer, the natural pauses, the musical up and down pattern of speech. It was like my brain was building a library of sounds, and when I spoke, I could take sounds straight from that library instead of inventing them on the spot. And here's a truth that hit me hard. Without daily input, daily output becomes almost impossible. If you're not feeding your brain English every day, you're starving it. Then, when you try to speak, your brain has nothing to work with. But if you're listening, reading, and surrounding yourself with English constantly, your brain is full of material to use. Speaking becomes smoother, faster, and way less stressful. Changing my environment into an English-rich space was more than just a habit, it was a lifestyle shift. Every song I listened to, every video I watched, even the random notifications on my phone, were now in English. And the best part? It didn't feel like studying. It felt like living. In the next chapter, I'll share this strange but powerful challenge I set for myself. One that made me uncomfortable at first, but completely transformed the way I heard my own English. It's something you can start today, and it will show you exactly where your speaking really stands. And yes, it involves pressing a button that most learners are scared to touch, the record button. Chapter 5. Recording myself every day. When I first got the idea of recording myself speaking English every day, I thought, this will be easy. I just need to talk for 1 minute. How hard can that be? Well, I found out very quickly that it wasn't easy at all. The very first time I pressed the record button on my phone, I froze. My mind went completely blank. I was staring at the camera like it was some kind of alien staring back at me. My heart was beating fast, and I started thinking, why am I nervous? I'm just talking to my phone. But somehow, the moment that little red light appeared, I felt like the whole world was watching me. I mumbled a few words, stopped, laughed at myself, and ended the recording after only 20 seconds. But I didn't give up. I decided that every single day, I would make at least a 1-minute video of me speaking in English. No matter how bad it sounded, no matter how awkward I felt, I would just do it. The first week was full of funny and strange moments. In one recording, I tried to say, "Today is a sunny day," but I accidentally said, "Today is a funny day," and then I burst out laughing. In another video, I forgot the English word for refrigerator, so I said big cold food box instead. I kept these videos, even though they were embarrassing, because I knew they would be part of my journey. The real spike moment came when I sat down one evening and rewatched my first week of recordings. I noticed so many mistakes I didn't realize I was making when I was speaking. Sometimes I was using the wrong tense, sometimes I was pronouncing words incorrectly, and sometimes I was speaking too fast, and my sentences didn't make sense. Watching myself from the outside was like holding up a mirror to my English skills. It showed me exactly what I needed to fix. I remember thinking, wow, I didn't even notice I was saying it like that. That moment changed the way I practiced because now I could actually see my progress. Every day, I kept recording. Some days I spoke about what I did that morning. Some days I described an object in my room. Other days I pretended I was giving a speech in front of an audience. The topics didn't matter. What mattered was that I was speaking. Over time, I began to feel less nervous. At first, I avoided looking directly at the camera because it felt uncomfortable, but after a few weeks, I could look straight at it and talk naturally, just like I was speaking to a friend. One important thing I learned was not to focus on perfection. If I tried to speak perfectly in every recording, I would waste too much time thinking instead of speaking. So I gave myself permission to make mistakes. I told myself, it's okay to be wrong, just keep talking. This mindset made a huge difference. When I stopped worrying about perfect grammar and pronunciation, my speaking became more fluent and natural. And interestingly, the fewer I worried, the better I actually became. Recording myself every day did more than just improve my speaking skills. It also prepared me for real conversations with people. The camera became my training partner. If I could speak confidently in front of my phone, I could speak confidently in front of anyone. By the time I had recorded myself for 2 or 3 months, I found that talking to strangers in English didn't scare me as much. I had already faced the pressure of performing in front of a silent audience, so speaking with real people felt easier. This daily recording habit became one of the most powerful tools in my English learning journey. It combined speaking practice, self-correction, and confidence building all in one. Looking back now, I can say that those 1-minute videos, no matter how awkward or funny they were worth every second. In Chapter 6, I'll share how I took this confidence from my private recordings and brought it into the real world, where I started having real English conversations with strangers. That was when things got truly exciting. Chapter 6. Mixing all habits into one routine. When I look back at my English journey, there was one moment where everything started to connect. In the beginning, I was doing things randomly. One day I would talk to myself. The next day, I would shadow a video. And some days I would record myself. But one day I asked myself, what if I just mix all of these habits into a single daily plan? That small decision changed everything. It turned my random efforts into a clear, repeatable system that I could do every single day. I remember sitting at my desk with a notebook, writing down the 4 main things that had been helping me: self-talk, thinking in English, shadowing videos, and recording myself. Then I asked, how can I fit these into 15 minutes? I wanted something so short that I could never use the excuse, I don't have time. And I came up with a simple plan. The plan was like this. First, 3 minutes of self-talk. I would pick a random topic, my plans for the day, what I ate for breakfast, or even how I was feeling, and I would just speak out loud in English. No script, no preparation, just speaking whatever came to my mind. This warmed up my brain and mouth for English. Second, 3 minutes of thinking in English without speaking. This was a mental exercise. I would sit or walk around and look at everything I could see, my phone, my cup of tea, the sunlight on the wall, and name it or describe it in English in my head. It was like training my brain to stop using my native language as a middleman. Third, 5 minutes of shadowing. I would pick a short English video, maybe a motivational clip, maybe a cooking video, or even a travel vlog, and I would listen and repeat at the same time as the speaker. This helped my pronunciation, rhythm, and natural flow. I felt like I was borrowing the speaker's style for those minutes. Finally, for minutes of recording myself, I would set my phone camera or voice recorder and talk about anything I wanted. Sometimes a short story, sometimes a summary of what I shadowed earlier. I didn't care about mistakes. I just wanted to capture how I spoke that day so I could compare it to the future. This 15-minute routine became my secret weapon. It was short, but it was powerful because it touched every skill: speaking, thinking, listening, and pronunciation, all in one session. And the best part? I could do it anywhere. Sometimes I did it in my room, sometimes while walking in the park, and sometimes in the quiet corner of a coffee shop. The spike came after just 3 months of doing this daily. I noticed I was speaking more smoothly. My tongue didn't freeze like before. I could start a sentence without thinking for 5 seconds first. Even my friends noticed the difference. One of them said, "You sound more confident now," and I smiled because they had no idea how much work I had been putting in quietly every single day. My confidence grew so much that I finally started speaking with others without fear. I joined small English conversation meetups. I talked to strangers while traveling, and I even answered questions in English at work. It wasn't that I had become perfect. I still made mistakes, but now those mistakes didn't stop me. I had practiced so much alone that speaking to real people felt like a natural next step. The most important thing I learned from this routine is simple. You don't need perfect conditions to improve your English. You don't need to live in an English-speaking country. You don't need expensive courses, and you don't need hours every day. You just need consistent action. A small daily habit, done without excuses, can change your life faster than you imagine. When I started, I had nothing. No confidence, no fluency, no clear method. But by building my skills step by step, mixing the habits together, and sticking with them, I created my own fluency. And if I could do it, so can you. Now, as I close this story, I want you to remember one thing. Progress in English is built the same way a house is built, brick by brick. My bricks were self-talk, thinking in English, shadowing, and recording. Yours can be the same. Start small, stay consistent, and one day, you'll look back and realize you've built something amazing.